Hello, hello, everybody. Happy Thursday. I'm Julie Barrett. Welcome back to the weekly live stream. I'm a little later than usual this week and kind of been scrambling to get things together. I am streaming live on our YouTube channel and our Conservative Ladies of America Facebook page and on my X account. So, as you guys are joining, let me know in the comments, in the discussion thread, wherever you're watching from. Let me know where you are watching from. Where in America are you watching from? Let me know in the comments. If you have questions as we go, please put those in the comments because the live stream is designed to be interactive and for us to be able to chat back and forth as we go here. So I see Mochi Girl in the YouTube chat from Washington, Jeff Haynes from Washington. I'm going to be going over actually quite a bit of Washington content in today's live stream. It's a dumpster fire in Washington State Legislature, and it is a massive game of whack-a-mole, which is nothing new for Washington State Legislature. However, this year seems to be particularly bad. The onslaught of bad bills, which have a common theme, which is most of them are unconstitutional. And that is not something new in Washington. And a lot of times we hear people on our social medias, a common comment on social media from people in Washington is this bill isn't constitutional. And that is really just par for the course in Olympia and has been as long as I have been paying attention there. So it is unfortunate, and I really don't know what the answer is. So let's dive right into this. I want to start with my experience in Tallahassee this week. Was my first experience testifying in the Florida State Legislature. And when I left Washington, I knew that wherever we went, I would get in the fight. And that was part of our deal with moving, is that wherever we went, I was going to go and fight. And we wanted to choose a state where we actually had a fighting chance of keeping our freedoms and liberties and holding on to our constitutional rights for as long as possible. Jeff, I too was born and raised in Washington State, as was my husband. And so until we both left we bought our house in 2022 and we moved in 2023. My mom is 82. Hey, Hannah, my daughter just joined the live chat. Good to see you, kiddo. I shouldn't call her kiddo. She's 19. So they probably don't like, your kids when they're adults probably don't like being referred to as kiddo. Anyway, good to see you in the chat, Hannah. My mother, who is 82, who born, raised, spent her entire life in Washington State, sold the home that they had for almost 50 years, the home that I was raised in. We moved in on my second birthday. They sold it in September, and they have moved to Florida, which that's a lot and they're in good shape. So it's not like we moved them down here to put them in a nursing home or something like that. They are in great shape. They bought a house here, and and my parents aren't political. I'd say my mom is a retired teacher, so she kind of leans left, but we're moving her over to the right. She doesn't agree with anything that's going on in public education today. I shouldn't say anything, but most, the garbage that we're seeing. And so it was getting so uncomfortable for them, with like the roads are terrible and you get taxed on everything and it's unaffordable, and, all that they're ripping out old neighborhoods, and, they rip out a dozen homes and they put up 70 in their place. So they were just ready to try something different. And so we're glad to have them here. I say wherever, if you're like, I'm going to stay in Washington or Minnesota or whatever blue state you are in, and you're going to stay there and you're going to fight. More power to you. I will help you in any way that I can. Be prepared, for whatever, come what may. You never know with a blue state. You never know with a red state for that matter. And I admire people that want to do that, because I know it's extremely uncomfortable. For us, it was like, well, you can't even go to the gun store and buy the firearms that you want to buy. They've outlawed so much of that stuff in these blue states that, it doesn't matter what the issue is. These Democrats in these blue states have really managed to make life uncomfortable and unfun for the American citizen taxpayer voter. So I went on Tuesday. I live in Sarasota, so that's about 4.5 hours south of Tallahassee. So I drove up on Tuesday night, spent the night, and testified in a committee hearing on yesterday morning at 8:30 a.m. It was the Senate Commerce and Tourism Committee, and I had watched some of the committee hearings last session. So I was kind of familiar with the way they do things, because it is a lot different than how Washington does it. And they only do in-person testimonies. So you have to go in person and testify on your bill, which Washington and many states actually allow for remote testimony via Zoom or however they do it, which is really nice because it does allow for more people to be engaged in the process. So I drove up, I testified. I was testifying on, so here's the difference. So you're in Tallahassee, you're walking into a committee hearing that is majority Republicans. The chair is a Republican, and the bill is sponsored by Republicans. And that's a very different dynamic than in Washington. The chair is a Democrat, they run the show. The bill is usually a Democrat bill, and it's bad, and you're opposing it. And so to go in where the Republicans have the majority and your organization is conservative ladies, you kind of, feel like you should be on the same team. And the bill that I testified on is Senate Bill 482. It's called the AI Bill of Rights. And this is something that Governor DeSantis had requested back in early December. He did a press conference on it, and he put out a press release on his website of, the policy that he wanted. And the bill is like, I don't know, 25-ish pages long. And there are a lot of good pieces of the bill. And this is what I testified against in this bill is something that we are seeing on a large scale. There is a huge wave across the country of these policies, Democrat and Republican alike, but primarily being pushed by Republicans. And so the provision in this bill, and I've done a whole video on it, so I won't belabor this. I'll kind of just give you guys the short rundown, and you guys can go look at that video. I think it's like a 10-minute video sort of breaking down the bill and the issues with the bill. The provision that I really have a big problem with is as it pertains to children. And these we're seeing these technology age verification, universal age verifications that really function as a de facto digital ID. They're pushed as protecting the children and empowering parents. And so with this AI Bill of Rights, children cannot be on chatbots or without parent permission. So the parent has to provide permission for their account. The chatbot conversations have to get monitored and sent to the parents. Well, how do you know the age of the user on a platform? Well, you are going to have to verify the age of every user. So every user that wants to use a chatbot is going to have to provide some kind of age verification ID. And in these policies, it can be anything from your government issued ID to transactional data, which is like a mortgage, education records, biometric data. So your facial recognition, your fingerprint, things like that. And this is a huge problem because most of these policies, and including Florida, they don't have guidelines for and parameters and restrictions for how these tech companies are to protect this data that they're collecting. Like they can't store it. But if you know anything about technology, even if you don't, like, you know that there's hackers, you know that there's a dark web. All of this kind of information is extremely valuable to hackers and on the dark web. And it doesn't take long for them to access this information. And a lot of these policies will say, well, it's anonymous. This idea is being collected anonymously. So I'm supposed to believe that I'm uploading my driver's license or my passport and it's somehow anonymous. That is technically impossible for these platforms to do with it being anonymous. I mean, that is why you're giving your government ID or whatever your data is, because it's tied to your identity. So there's that piece of it. Then there's the piece of monitoring these conversations that these kids are having. So let's say you have a 16-year-old that's having a conversation with a chatbot. Somewhere that conversation is being collected and stored and then being delivered to the parent. And this data that they're collecting from these kids, the day they turn 18, this data doesn't just get wiped away, removed from the cloud or wherever it goes. This data, these conversations, and I'm sure like our conversations that we're having with Grok or ChatGPT, somebody is collecting them somewhere out there. So maybe don't have like I do a lot of research and education type things. I'm a student, so I do a lot for school, researching stuff with AI. I don't have private, like anything that was found through my conversations nothing's private. So I don't care. That's something to keep in mind. But if you're giving your child's, let's say let's say you're uploading a birth certificate to show your child's ID and you're giving your driver's license, passport, whatever, those two pieces are connected. And then they're logging all of these conversations that your kid is having. I think it's safe to say that when I was growing up and when I was a teenager and young adult, fortunately, social media wasn't really a thing. And so if you said something stupid on social media, it didn't pop up in a job interview 5 years later. If you said something stupid when you were 17, it didn't pop up later. Now like everything these kids say and do on social media when they're maybe doing ridiculous and foolish things as teenagers, those things, like, they live forever on the internet. The internet is forever. And so there are so many problems with this particular policy. And when I did my testimony, it's on X and on my Facebook page. So if you want to watch it, you can go there. I really tried to stick to, the aspects of the bill and the certain Florida statutes that I was concerned about, this data privacy and potential data breaches and things like that, this data collection. I was happy that, like, in Washington, they have a little timer that sits on a desk, or if you're on Zoom, it's in the corner of your Zoom screen. And so you see this clock counting down and it starts green and then it turns yellow and then it turns red. And so you're like reading your testimony and, as it goes, you just start speeding up. They didn't have a timer, so I was able to get through, and they didn't cut me off. So I got through my whole, I think it was like 2.5 minutes testimony. They were very respectful. Something that Florida does that Washington does not is, in the same committee hearing, they vote the bill out of committee. So after all the people testified, then the committee debated on the bill, and then they voted it out of committee. They voted unanimously to pass this bill out of committee, which I kind of hoped that at least the Democrat, I mean, isn't that weird? It's so bizarre to say. I hoped that the Democrats would vote no. But nobody voted no. It was passed unanimously. And after the meeting was over, people were kind of milling around. A lot of the media people were running up to the chair, who was also the sponsor of the bill. and some of the other senators. I actually had quite a delightful conversation with two of the Democrat senators on the committee. They were very kind to me, and I'm sure that we disagree on almost everything politically, but they were very kind, and I'm not always treated very kindly by Democrats or Republicans for that matter. And after I got done talking to them, the sponsor of the bill, who's also the chair of the committee, was kind of walking by, and so I just thanked him. I said, "Thank you, for allowing me to speak to your bill. I'd really love the opportunity to work with you on making some improvements to protect data and children further with this bill." And he looked at me, and this is where I got the title for this live stream. He looked at me and he said, something, and then he said, "I don't think there's any stopping this." And the look on his face said, "I am a puppet, and even if I wanted to stop this bill, I can't." That was, I could be misreading him, but the way that he said it and the look on his face just said, I and these guys don't write the bill, they get it from somewhere else, and they just put their name on it and they run it, and that's how it works. So it didn't really surprise me to know that that the bill is unstoppable, but just the way that he said it really weighed on me. And then my whole drive home afterwards, I just kept thinking about the way that he said that, and it made me really sad. It really weighed heavily on me and was discouraging, but it's true. And I already knew that. It was just, I guess it was just weird to hear a lawmaker say it out loud to a citizen. And it, I'm just been trying to figure out I'm like, God, I know that you wanted me to have this exchange with this senator and you wanted me to hear this. Now, what am I supposed, what do I do with this? And I was probably the only citizen in the room. Most of the people there to speak to bills were from lobbyist groups or other organizations or the press, media. They were paid. I was the only person that was, I'm basically a citizen volunteer. And I was the only person that was likely just, we the people, here I am. And it's difficult because, it took 24 hours, right? Like I had to drive up there. I just paid to spend the night in a hotel. And then I had to go do the meeting in the morning. And then I had to drive all the way home. So it took me away from, it's time and money. And time is money. And most people can't afford to do that. I mean, that's not something the average citizen can just yeah, I'll take a couple days and I'll go to the state capitol and testify on a bill for 2 minutes and hope that they do what I say. And I think that the process is that's by design, right? While they are they're elected to serve the people, but they don't really want the people involved in the process. Otherwise, it'd be easier for the people to be involved in the process. It wouldn't be the political industrial complex versus we the people who are all at work all day and can't pay attention to this stuff. And I think about as we elect people to go up there, most of the people that we elect are just puppets for the machine. That's not to say they're not nice people or decent people. They're captured by the political industrial complex. I mean, and that's a fact. I told my husband, and I've said this a lot, if I were to get elected to a state legislature, I would get elected once and then I would lose my reelection because I would get in there and I would refuse to, be captured by the political machine. And then I wouldn't get reelected because they'd be like, oh, well, that Julie Barrett, she votes no on everything. And she, is blocking all these policies that we want to get through. And all of these policies that they're getting through some of them are good for us, but for the most part, they're not. For the most part, they're good for the lobbyist groups and the special interest groups that have an agenda. We're talking about medical and housing and transportation and agriculture and medical. Did I said medical? Education. Like all of this stuff is like it's a huge industry. Politics is an industry. And these people are making so much money. And 90, 80, I don't know what percent of the time, it doesn't serve we the people. And it's very frustrating. And I think what I came away with was that if people like me don't take the time to speak, if I stopped doing what I'm doing, even if I, am only reaching a few people, those few people are now they're not going to be reached. And, let's say I am reaching a few people. Let's say I'm reaching 100 people just with this video. Maybe those 100 people, you get the domino effect, right? You get those 100 people going out and reaching their friends, even if it's just 1 or 2 people each, and just building an awareness. I think that's what we have to do if we have any chance of reclaiming our country and our culture for the good of we the people. And so I think it's incumbent upon people like me who are passionate enough to take 24 hours and go do that. I think that I have to do that. So that was my Tallahassee experience. It was kind of I'm glad I went. It was kind of a bummer though. And I feel like politics is just, the longer I'm in it, the more truth that I see. And it makes me sad because I don't think this is how America was supposed to be. And I don't think that America can be sustained at the rate that we're going. And I think there's very few people, I would say, like Thomas Massie, Tim Burchett. I know a lot of the conservatives, even here in Florida, a lot of the conservatives in the legislature get the boot because they don't play the game. They're really, truly there for we the people. Marjorie Taylor Greene, she's doing some stuff on YouTube. At least that's where I've caught it. Basically sharing some of her insights to what she saw in Congress and everything I've heard her say. Now, I haven't seen a lot at the congressional level. I've worked mostly at a state level, but everything that she has said is exactly the kind of stuff, the type of things that I've seen at a state level. And I have every reason to believe that she is 100% being truthful. And a lot of the dirty stuff that she experienced that goes on in Congress happens at a state level as well. It's all just very corrupt. And but we have to speak up. We have to do whatever we can, wherever we are, with whatever time and tools and talents that we have to do it because our country is worth it. So there's my Tallahassee experience. There is, if you guys have been if you're a regular watcher, you've heard me talk about the App Store Accountability Act, another garbage de facto digital ID bill. We have it here in Florida this session. And so I think I probably would go back up. If my husband can take the day off and go with me, I would go back up and testify on that bill, because I think it's all of these universal age verification policies that we're seeing are happening so fast. It is incredible how much they are saturating the country, states around the country, and they're so bad. They don't protect children. If anything, they're going to make things much worse, as government regulation always does. And so I think that going for that particular bill would be kind of good and just helping get the word out, because anytime you testify, the media picks it up. So I was quoted in a couple of different articles, and so more people see that. And so that's probably what I do. And then I probably wouldn't go up there a whole lot more than that. Why is my name on the screen? That's weird. Interesting. Let's take that off. You all know who I am. Has that been on there the whole time? That's weird. So just want to say hello to a couple of people. Silvermine from Connecticut. Good to see you. Chess Lover, I have responded con to 38 bad Democrat bills in Washington. That's awesome. Well done. Keep it up. I said at the beginning, we are playing whack-a-mole. So yeah, you could hundreds of bills. You could probably just sign in con on every bill that's getting a hearing up there in Washington. Let's see. American Bald Guy. Hey, good to see you. They are coming for your kids. It used to be a joke. Yes, you are absolutely right. They have come. They have come for the kids. Let's see. Did I miss anybody? I think I got everybody. If you guys have, wherever you're at, if you have questions, we're watching state policy from all over. So if you are in, if you're looking at a bill and you have a question about it, feel free to drop that in the chat. Just one other thing before we move on from these age verification laws is, they pitch these as this, we have to do this to protect the children. And, my kids are all over the age of 18 now. They're 19 to 29. And so my youngest three, 19, 19, and 21, my oldest was kind of she was just before the big social media stuff, right? But my other ones, I would say, had a lot of it in middle school and high school. And I wish that, one of my biggest regrets as a parent is giving them access to technology before they were ready, which I would say ready is like 25. Just kidding. But when I look at these bills, I think as a parent, it is my job to protect my children from the dangers of social media, harmful content online, AI chatbots. It's my job. If my kid is on a laptop in my home or that I supplied them with, and they're accessing all of that, ultimately the buck stops with me. And I get it. Like, that's a hard pill to swallow because, I was a single mom of four for 10 years. It's like I was playing whack-a-mole parenting. Like, something was always going on with somebody, and the technology made it much harder. But even as hard as it was, I don't want to be saying, hey, government, come give us a mandate to protect my kids, because what's going to happen if they add all these, age verification things? Kids are way smarter. Kids are way smarter than all of the adults that are making these laws. I can guarantee you that. My son at 16 would have run circles around these lawmakers and would have had a way to get around all of it. And that's a lot of kids. They've had, especially if you're a parent that, is giving your kids a iPhone while you're walking around the grocery store and the kid is just glued to the iPhone, or in the restaurant. That's a pet peeve of mine. So these kids have that's all they know is technology. Whereas we adults, we're kind of trying to keep up with whatever the new thing is. And so the kids are going to use VPNs. They're going to get around all of this stuff. They're going to find a way to do it. So ultimately though, parents, the buck stops with you. And I think we need to, I was talking to a dad, a guy who's going to run for office, and he's got like 3 kids, 5 and under. And I was talking to him about these bills. And I said, my biggest advice to you is don't give your kids the technology. If you want them to do a little bit, do it with them. We have a responsibility to empower and equip parents with the actual tools to protect their kids. And I'm going to put up Justin. Justin is a new follow on X. Justin, I think you said you lived in Sarasota. So we're going to have to connect, because I think that you and I are on the same team as these policies go. And this team is small. We need to grow this team because the other team is really big and they have a lot of money and they really want to pass these laws. So the App Store Accountability Act was filed in 21 states last year. And yes, it will be more. It already is more. New Hampshire's got one. I want to say New Mexico also has one. I'm watching for it in Washington, but we'll see what happens there. It passed last year in Texas, Utah, Louisiana. There's already a lawsuit on the Texas bill. It was not able to go into effect on January 1st. So why are other states pushing these policies forward until we get this worked out in the courts? Like, I don't want to pay for a lawsuit here in Florida. And Justin saying that bill only, the App Store bill only covers mobile devices, not laptops, desktops, or game consoles. And the thing to remember with the App Store Accountability Act, the thing I like to say is it locks the front door, but it leaves all the windows and the back door and the garage door. Everything else is open. Oh, yes, Alabama is next. I think it's House Bill 161, and that's moving through quickly, I think. Parents don't understand. Like, you approve, let's say, Snapchat at the App Store level for your kid. All of the in-app dangers still exist. And it makes the parents feel good because they had the parental controls, which you already have, by the way. You have the power to have those types of parental controls with the devices that you give your kids. And Meta and Senator Brian Lenny in Idaho calls it the Grindr bill because Grindr loves it, Meta loves it, Meta's funding it. Grindr probably is too. Who else? I saw Pinterest had, come out in strong support. Of course, they love it because it takes the responsibility off of them, puts the age verification down to the App Store level, and then they don't have to change anything. So the kids are not protected. It just sounds good. We got to protect the kids, got to empower parents. How about a government mandate? No, that's not the way. So these bills are a big deal. They're happening across the country. And the Digital Childhood Alliance is really one of the big, I think they're really kind of like spearheading this effort and really trying to get it into every state. And it's also at the federal level. So Congress is working on moving this bill through. They have, there's a Florida representative along with John James. I think he's from Michigan. Those two are running the House bill, and Senator Mike Lee, I used to consider him one of the most conservative senators, he's running the Senate version of the App Store Accountability Act. So if those were to pass at a federal level, well, they'd certainly be facing lawsuits, but it would apply to everybody. So even if you haven't gotten an App Store bill in your state, you would get it now. Okay, so I want to talk about some of the stuff that's going on in Washington. A couple of big bad bills were cleared the Senate yesterday. Those are Senate Bill 5098, which is a carryover from 2025. That is pertaining to firearms in sensitive places. Those sensitive places are, I was going to put this up on the screen for you guys because. So let me see if I can add this. Share screen. I want. Yep. Okay. I think this is what I want. Yep. All right. So this bill, Senate Bill 5098, would prohibit firearms in neighborhood, community, or regional park facilities that are operated by a city, town, county, or other municipality anywhere that children are likely to be present. This would include playgrounds, children's play areas, sports fields, swim beaches, or water play areas, teen centers, community centers, performing arts centers, skate parks, other recreational facilities that are likely to be used by children or youth. State or local public buildings, defined as a building, a part of a building owned, leased, held, or used by a city, town, county, or other municipality, or the state of Washington. The conditions here are that state or local public employees are regularly present to perform official duties, and the building is not regularly used as a place of residence for those employees. Here are the exclusions. This does not include Washington State Department of Transportation properties and facilities such as, I think I was trying to like combine 3 different words there. Ferry terminals, ferry holding lanes, safety rest areas, train depots. These are primarily used for general traveling public. Weapons must remain in locked cases or in a locked portion of the vehicle. They've also exempted county fairs and county fair facilities. The reason for this, I believe this was part of a Republican amendment, maybe because, you know, a lot of the gun shows are at the fairgrounds. So I think that may be part of why they did that. So this passed through the Senate yesterday, and it still has to go through the House. So it moves from the Senate to the House, and where it will go through the process again. So it has to go through committee. It could get amendments, and it probably will. I don't know if it will go through appropriations. It will definitely go through like civil rights and judiciary. And then it might go through appropriations, and then it goes to a floor vote. Here's I've said this before, but I'll say it again in case you haven't heard my prediction. We should make a bet on this. My prediction is that, so in 2024, when they passed Senate Bill 5044, which was another sensitive places bill, they added, I think it was a McCune amendment that they added to keep CPL holders could carry at these places. I think, and it's in the current bill, I suspect that the House is going to take that out. I think they're going to strike it. Let's see. Because I know they didn't want it in the original 5044 that went through the Senate last year. So we will see what happens with that. The other bill that passed yesterday is Senate Bill 5068. And that is the bill that allows non-citizens to be police officers, firefighters, and prosecutors. This is a very bad bill that, fortunately, it did not pass last session, which is actually really good because it passed through the Senate with unanimous support. Every single Republican voted for it last year. And I'm looking for the amendment because I want to show you guys the amendment that it is not show. Oh, there it is. Okay. When it passed the Senate last year, all 19 Republicans voted yes. And then by the time it got over to the House, everybody was like, what did you do? And so they were able to kill it in the House. And so this, when it went through yesterday, all of the Republicans voted no. So that was I would say that's a huge win. I would say that's also kind of a nice gift for those Republicans so that they don't forever have their name as a yes for allowing non-citizens to become police officers. So I do want to show you this Lovick amendment that, let's see, stop screen share. Okay, I have to do this again. The producer's on vacation today. Just kidding. There is no producer. You guys know that. Okay, let's add this to the stage. Okay, so a lot of legislative ease going on here. I'll just scroll right down to, it's a striker, so let's go all the way to the bottom. You guys can find this also on, if you go to leg.wa.gov, and there's a little search box for a bill number at the very top of the page. Type in 5068, and the amendment is down towards the bottom of the page. But let's just take a look at this. This is the effect of what all this did. So it requires law enforcement officers, firefighters, and prosecuting attorneys to have legal authorization to work in the United States, and applies this requirement to currently employed law enforcement officers, firefighters, and prosecuting attorneys, makes the bill effective immediately. So there's an emergency clause. You can see that right here It's not letting me. Come on, let me highlight right here. Creating a new section. We'll just do this and declaring an emergency. So this is the emergency clause. Somebody commented on social media yesterday, like kind of thinking like it was the same thing as a governor declaring an emergency for like COVID or a natural disaster. This is different. This specifically applies to legislation. It's pretty common. I would say in Washington state, it's definitely overused. They put it on anything that they want, obviously, to take effect immediately, and that they don't want to be able to have a referendum on. So, like, if you've been in Washington for the last couple of years, in 2023, they passed Senate Bill 5599, which I call the state-sanctioned kidnapping bill. It did not have an emergency clause, and so they were able to run a referendum. There was a citizen referendum. It didn't get enough votes, so it didn't go on the ballot. But this, adding an emergency to this, will not allow a referendum on it, and it, of course, will take effect immediately. So what this signals to me is that law enforcement officers in Washington state are being hired that are not citizens. They already have been hired and brought in, and that's why they're making it retroactive. So some people read this and they think, oh, well, legally authorized to work, they must have, their green card or whatever. So there's a lot of different people by federal law who are legally authorized to work: asylees, refugees, people with temporary protected status, visa holders, and things like that. So there's a pretty broad spectrum of people that are legally authorized to work in the United States. They're still not citizens, and they still should not be enforcing laws on citizens. And so you've got where you're going to be arresting. You're going to have these people that aren't citizens that are arresting citizens. I think that's a really bad thing to do. So this will definitely pass this year in Washington, clearly. A lot of people ask about the firearms component to this. Last session, and I don't see it in the Stryker bill. Let me just look here really quickly. What they were working on last year with this was an amendment that would allow these non-citizen law enforcement officers to carry a firearm when they are on duty. That was an amendment that was worked up in the House committee. And then, like I said, it didn't get a floor vote. So I don't see it, though, in the version that passed in the Senate, but I'm sure that it will have to get added because non-citizens can't carry firearms. They can't own firearms. So they're going to need to change the law. And I hear you guys. That's not constitutional. That's against federal law. Look at what they're doing. A lot of things are pretty much everything is unconstitutional and, in opposition and resistance to federal law. And there's so much of it that it's like, what do you do? Like, part of me says, why hasn't Trump regime change? Like, we need regime change in some of these blue states. So those are two pretty bad bills that will both pass this session. So be watching for those. There are a number of bills that have committee hearings next week. Just a couple that I will tell you about. Senate Bill 6055 has a hearing on January 27th at 8 a.m. It's already scheduled for executive session on the 29th. So in Washington, what they do is they have the public hearing where they hear all the testimony and the sponsor talks about the bill. And then in another meeting, usually they have an executive session. And usually they don't schedule the executive session for most bills until after the public hearing. So the fact that they've already scheduled executive session means this bill is moving. This is, like I said, firearms background checks. What they're doing is they're removing the fee cap for the background check. So I think, what is it, $18 now or something? There's whatever they want to charge. So that's not a good one. Also Senate Bill 6182, I call it the abortion tax. They're creating what they're calling an abortion access fund, where your medical insurance provider will be charged by the state a fee, a tax, if you will, per person. So like if, let's say, I'm Blue Cross, Blue Cross will pay 85 cents a month or a year or whatever it is into the abortion access fund on my behalf. And they can't pass that on to me as abortion access fund, but it will get passed on. Oh, we just raised the rates. So ultimately it will get passed on. All of these things get passed on. The medical insurance companies certainly are not going to eat this. They're not going to eat this abortion access fund. So that's another bad bill. I don't have written down on my sheet what day that is. I think it's probably on June 27th. So again, that's Senate Bill 6182. Another one that should be on your radar, even if you don't homeschool, is Senate Bill 6261. The Democrats, especially Senator Lisa Wellman, has been trying to lower the compulsory age of attendance for many, 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 many years. The homeschool community always barks back and ends up killing the bill. They've historically done a really good job of that. And so here she comes with another bill. It doesn't lower the compulsory age of attendance, but it creates this new reporting requirement for 6 and 7-year-olds. And I think Washington has the oldest age of compulsory attendance, which I think is really good because we encourage anybody, if you're in Washington, you should absolutely be homeschooling your kid. Don't send your kid to the public indoctrination centers that hate parents, where they think parents don't have any right to know what their child is, the name that their child is called, the gender that their child is declaring at school, their child's mental health. A lot of the public school record is off limits to parents, which parents should totally defy that by not sending their kids to public school and homeschool their kids. And so this is really going to be one of those things where you're going to have mission creep with this. This is just a step in the direction of getting that compulsory age of attendance lowered. And so just as a standpoint of we are the parents and we do not report to the government, this should be completely opposed. That's kind of my high level since we probably don't have a room full of homeschool parents on live stream today, but you should help. We need all the help. These homeschool parents need as much help as possible to kill this bill. Senate Bill 6261. Cheslover testified against Senate Bill 5098. That's awesome. I have seen a number of citizens testifying in Olympia, and I absolutely love it. I want to give a shout out to Anna B on X and also Erica PNW on X for the good. I think is what she goes by. But Erica and Anna, I think over the last couple of years, I've been seeing more from them on social media about Erica focuses primarily on election stuff. I think that's kind of her little area of focus. And Anna, I think is I probably shouldn't even speculate, but I think she's a homeschool mom or a mom of a little, and she's just very concerned and she's getting active, and she's actually been going to Olympia and testifying in person. And it's awesome to see that. And that's what we have to do. We have to, one by one, and we have to start building our coalition of citizens to go into these places and speak. And speak up for ourselves. And, it can be, even for me, I've been testifying a lot over the last few years, and I still, every time I testify, I still get that, I call it imposter syndrome, right? Who am I to be speaking to these lawmakers, and the truth is these lawmakers, they don't have to have a special degree on passing laws or public policy. They don't have to have any of that. They just have to get the most votes. And so truly they are just running policies for people that have put out these model policies, like these age verification laws that we've been talking about. This is all what's called model policy. That's why you see it with the gun bills too, right? We copy paste legislation. None of these bills, the assault weapons bans, which by the way, we have some Democrat has proposed an assault weapons ban here in Florida, which is kind of funny because it'll never see the light of day, at least not right now. But that's what they do. They have, Giffords or Everytown or whoever comes up with the model to a policy, it just gets, distributed out to all the states, and some of these lawmakers, pick up and run it, and there's money involved. And like I said, when I was in this hearing yesterday, everybody in the room, maybe with the exception of a couple people, everybody besides me was paid to be there. And that's why we have the situation in our country that we have. It's not it's really not a red state, blue state thing. They're all paid actors. And, we were talking about the App Store Accountability Act earlier. And, I said it passed in Texas this year. We think of Texas and Florida are like the conservative, beacons of America. And the App Store Accountability Act passed in Texas with only one no vote. It was one lone Republican. I think he's in the House. I think it's a representative. And I reached out to him a couple times because I'd love to do a video with him, because we need to get more of these lawmakers speaking to the people of why these bills are bad. And I did Brian Lenny and I did a video together, which you can find on our YouTube channel, talking about the App Store Accountability Act. And he does a really good job of breaking it down. And really, like me, he's like, parents really have to step up. And I get it, in the digital age, it makes it a lot harder. And that's why part of the solution has to be giving parents tools and equipping parents with ways that they can protect their children. And there should probably be some like things that aren't okay, like for acceptable consumption by the public. Like, maybe a robot that tells people to, kill themselves is not a good idea. And how do we just end that? The AI genie, the tech genie is so out of the box there. And, it's like, you're not putting that toothpaste back in the tube. So we're going to have to figure this out. And I really think my purpose for 2026 is going to be really educating people and raising awareness about these age verification policies that claim to protect children, so that people aren't buying the garbage that they're trying to sell, that we have to pass these to protect the kids. This is a very slippery slope. When you've got people that wrote the policy for the UK digital ID bills, working on passing these bills in America and using the UK as their like, look what we did over here. We could get this done real fast here, but you guys have this First Amendment that, the courts are, anyway, I could go on and on about this. I want to see American Bald Guy is in the chat. How many times do they need to check my background? Well, they're probably going to start checking it in Washington. They're probably going to start checking it more and more and more. The blue dye did a lot of brain damage to it. Yes, the blue hair dye. You are absolutely right. So I'm just looking through here to see AK Audits. I don't know if you're still here, but it's good to see you in the chat. More information, if you're looking for more information, is on our Substack. I put out a Substack almost every day, which you can find at conservativeladiesofamerica.substack.com. If you would like to support our work, and like I said, we are one of the very few people that are talking about these policies. We're on a very small team over here, trying to alert citizens as to what's going on. If you want to support us in these efforts, becoming a paid subscriber to our Substack is a great way to do it. We also have GiveSendGo, givesendgo.com/conservativeladies.us. If you are on YouTube, there should be a thanks button below the video. You can click on that and you can throw us a thank you. But all of that, like, we are just powered by, we're not a lobbyist group. We don't have any deep pocket donors, much as I wish we did. don't usually donors that give you a lot of money want to tell you what to do. And we're not doing that. So we really rely on the generous donations of citizens just like you. And our goal is to just raise awareness and make a lot of noise to wake up as many citizens as we can so we can slow this train down that seems to be taking us off of our Constitution. So, with all of that said, happy weekend, guys. No, it's a very worthy fight, and so I'm honored to be. I'm honored that God has put this passion in my heart to pursue some of this stuff and research some of this stuff. I really enjoy interacting with you all, so I'm glad for that, and I think that we the people can do a lot of good work, and we, if the people rise up, we so outnumber all of the politicians and all of the special interest groups and all the lobbyists. That's why they want to silence the truth tellers. So when you get, overwhelmed by it, just remember that light always wins and the truth always wins. And when you come in there with your flashlight, they will do everything they can to shut you down. And we will not be shut down and we will not be quiet. So with that, thank you guys for joining. Please do share this video with anyone that you think, with anyone and everyone. Everybody needs to know this. This is important stuff. Our government is important stuff. So please share this far and wide. If you're watching on replay, thank you for watching. And I will be back next Thursday, and I look forward to seeing you guys then. In the meantime, feel free to reach out, Julie at conservativeladiesofamerica.com. Have a great weekend, guys. I'll see you next week.